Hey guys, so I'm back. I just thought I would elaborate on the previous video I make since astrology can be a bit confusing. And it's a bit maddening because it's more of an art than a science. But yeah, even I'm trying to figure it out. But here's the thing. So I'm sharing my screen. So this is how I think Navgraha works. So there is sun and moon, which represent yoga or yoga, and which helps you master skills. So it's like, let's say things in your life are on point. Let's say you have some degree of stability in your life with money, with society, with parents, and all, and then you lock in, like you get into a zone to try and master some skills. It can be weight training, it can be an academic pursuit, it can be learning an art, it can be learning traditional medicine or modern medicine and trying to like elevate yourself. So that zone you enter into, that's the Surya Nadi or the sun. um, and like, but you cannot always maintain it. Maybe some people can, like that's how inventions happen. So let's say when a PhD does research, so they keep staying in that Surya Nadi for a long time so as to get to something which is new. But for most people, like for me at least, given my background and given that I said that I did face discrimination, it's not practical for me to stay in that nadi for long. So I get periods of time where I can be, but then I have to switch to chandra nadi. Chandra nadi or the moon is more like intuition. So I have to empty my mind. I have to trust that those skills that were lodged in my brain, they are going to help me, and I have to start to reason from first skills to get to where I want to be. So that I think is sun and moon. Then comes Rahu and Ketu, which is more about illusion, occult, and misinformation, while Ketu is the antidote. So, whatever predatory forces are present in the society which keep the society in check, and these might also be present in your body, whatever keeps your body in check, those are like Rahu and Ketu. So, Ketu is like the antidote. Um, then we already talked about Saturn. So, Saturn is about stable job and finances. Jupiter is the guru, which is your teacher, the philosopher, which protects and which helps with education. And then we get to the three grahas, which are, I think, the most important: Mercury, Venus, and Mars. So I think since Mercury represents intellect, Venus represents physical beauty, composure, and fine arts, while Mars represents unsurmountable strength as well as wars, warlords. So I think these three are the domains of the gods, and these three planets are what are the closest to nakshatras or the constellations or the Sahasrar chakra or the crown chakra. So earlier, like when I had thoughts, I was like, is there just one Sahasrar or is there two or three? So I think these three represent the Sahasrar, which is also the nakshatras. Nakshatras say that they occur in certain combinations. So like 24 nakshatras and 4 padas, which means 108. So that is the point. And like we get to how the world is structured. So the entire world has grahas. So there is sun and moon nadis, there is all these planets, Rahu and Ketu. So the world works a certain way, and if you want to visualize what Rahu and Ketu might represent over here, they might represent societies where the birth rate plummets, or where certain sections of the society just stop reproducing. So it's like the diversity reduces. It's like a suicide of a civilization. That would be Rahu and Ketu. Sun and moon would be like the dominant culture, the cultural interactions of the world. Mercury, Venus, Mars would be like what beautify the world. Saturn and Jupiter are like as usual. But here's the thing. So let's say we talked about big tech, HFTs, management jobs, these three fields which are creating a sort of discrimination between higher pay individuals and lower pay individuals. So that is a world in itself. So it's a world within a world, and I'll get to like how I got to that point. But like that world has its own Surya and Chandra, so it has its own leadership, and it has its own Rahu and Ketu. So let's take my case for instance. So when I went to do an ND in Europe, in Netherlands, it's like there was a group which didn't like me, and it was, I mean, I kind of thought that because I was led to Europe and most people were not interested in working, that was a kind of a setup. So that small system, it has its own Surya and Chandra, right? So that Surya is going to try to come after me. The leadership is going to, so I cannot stay in the Surya Nadi for long. I cannot be, I'm here to try to master a domain, because that will just lead to mania, right? It's called, I think Surya Chadna is like, if the sun gets to you, it's like you go manic, right? Because you cannot handle. So I have to stay in the Chandra Nadi. It's like I have to empty my mind, I have to think from first principles, and I have to contribute. That is why I said when I did my ND, since AI came along a little bit, like the work there wasn't difficult, so it eased the burden on me. So I could outsource my work to GPT a little bit. That time I didn't know cursor and all. But that's the kind of a thing. So it's like if you begin to learn to conquer the Rahu, so Rahu Ketu is like what makes it predatory. So Ketu, Rahu tries to consume the sun to exert a sort of influence on you. So the sun, this is how the entire world within a world tries to exert an influence on you. But in this, the sun gets corrupted. It means the trust begins to break down. So if you can outlast the system, the trust in the system breaks, right? So that is usually the only strategy you have when you are being discriminated against. But let's say you come to, let's say my other organizations that I was in, MathWorks in the US or Synopsys here in India, ANSYS, I would say. Synopsys acquired ANSYS. So it's like if I'm working on something and if the system is after me, it's like Rahu is trying to consume Surya and Chandra to try to come after me, which is leading to a sort of corruption or a break in the trust. The trust breaks the more I retaliate. So I might get some chance to be in the Surya Nadi in the beginning, which, let's say when I was at MathWorks, I was like, MathWorks was a decent ramp up from Penn State. So I had a decent background. There weren't that many difficult projects. I got used to the code base fast and I started to contribute. So the Surya Nadi, I didn't have to be in the Surya Nadi for long, right? So I could just be in the Chandra Nadi. Like I'll just be intuitive. I'll do whatever I want. And then I'll go out to learn dance, to martial arts, which are not as Surya intensive. So in dance, I never learned musicality. I just learned body movements, right? So Venus and Mars. So Venus is like dance, Mars is like martial arts. So instead of delving deep into it, I was just like, let me just master body movements, right? Because if I'm not statically beautiful, I can be dynamically beautiful, right? If I can't lift weights, I can at least learn to move weights different ways so that I can fight. So I'm trying to master those two grahas. So Surya and Chandra is how I try to master that. So there it's fine, but when the system came after me through the dance community, through martial arts, through the job, when that came into me, it's like my Surya, my own Surya, like the enthusiasm within me, it just got exhausted. And that was a mistake. So when I joined ANSYS, the game was much more difficult. Like I had to be in the Surya Nadi. I had to learn. So before I joined here, I had like some episode of like learning how to lead code, how to begin to form a theory around algorithms. Like there was a long ramp up time. And then slowly and slowly I learned the code base, but I had AI by my side, right? And the way it progressed was as my difficulty increased, the Sonnet and Opus and the higher models were released and GPT was released. So there was this sort of a curve which helped me stay in the Surya Nadi and helped me get to the point where I knew the code base enough. But once it was done, and it's like again it was sort of magical, because today is the day that the infinite request, like the request based model of cursor stops for us, and from tomorrow, from the next month, the token based billing starts, which is much more expensive. But most of my work is done today now, and like I can be in the Chandra Nadi now, so it's like I can be more intuitive now. It's like I have given up trying to learn things. I'm going to reason from first principles, right? So this retaliation which exhausts the system, so the Rahu has to consume the sun and it tries to come after me, and I still fight back. So that destroys the trust in the system. That is the only way you can combat discrimination. And so usually, like, there is this world and it calls upon a bigger world. So let's say Altair was acquired by Siemens or Ansys was acquired by Synopsys. So it's like, instead of fighting Ansys, Altair, MathWorks, you are now having to fight bigger companies like Synopsys or Siemens and all. And if that doesn't work, like say Synopsys is going to try to have business partnerships with Nvidia or Qualcomm. So it's like the world keeps expanding, like, right? So it's like the solar system that defines this world. It's going to try and keep expanding it till it gets to you. So when a system comes after you, you have no choice but to stay in the Chandranadi. What helps you stay in the Suryanadi is Jupiter, which is also called the stone called Pukhraj, which might also be what Isaac Newton called philosopher's stone. So it's like the most protective stone there is. So if education helps you move forward, it's the most protective stone there is. Fun fact, I don't think yellow sapphire is the right stone for it, because yellow sapphire is, I think, artificial. I don't believe that artificial gemstones can match the natural ones. There might be some other gemstone which is more suited to it. But here is where I got the idea for that from. There is the scene in One Piece which I like a lot. So just a minute. So this is when Zoro cuts Pika. You see this one? Here he talks about a world within a world. So that was where I got I think it's a Buddhist saying, and sometimes, like, in Demon Slayer they have that Nami Amida Butsu or this. So it's like these are concepts from Buddhism, because the way I have approached Suryanadi, I get initiated into a process, and then I execute it very mechanically. So let's say there is me and there is a senior I have at IITD. The difference between the two of us is, I cannot stay in the Suryanadi for long. He can. So let's say we both go to the US, but I choose a master's program because I want to contribute. Like, I cannot stay in the same domain for long and learn a bit more every single time. That is beyond me. But he can do that. But we both are discriminated against. So the only option he has is to somehow complete the PhD in US, maybe go for a postdoc in Europe, and then maybe get back to India to become a professor. I don't have that capability. He also has to go through discrimination. He also has to go through tough times in his life, and he's not the only one. That's how a lot of professors end up in India, in IITs, when they could have been abroad. So I have to face discrimination, and I don't have that quality in me. So that is like Mercury in Surya. So I have Mercury, but it's in Chandra. I cannot bring it out. So let's say the example of Feynman. So someone compared the IQ of Feynman to the IQ of a whore. So Feynman had an IQ of 125, and that whore had an IQ of 135 or 140. But then why was Feynman able to contribute more? So it's like someone said, I think it's Big Thinkers on Instagram, that Feynman had that ability to enter a zone, right? That zone is how you get to PhDs. So it also brings me to the structure of this. So when you look at US is going to let you do that. If you have the Suryanadi, you can pursue a PhD in your US and you can complete it successfully. The point is, the big techs present in US, they are not going to let you stay there. So you have to make your way back if you are being discriminated against. For someone like me, Europe might be a good option. But in Europe, I'll have to go for a PhD in which I can be more in my Chandranadi. So more like an applied PhD, not somewhere where I have to sit down with a problem and then come up with some, because that is just not me, right? If I try to do that, I will fail. But here's the thing. So one planet we did not consider here was Mars. So let's say there are these systems. So there are worlds within worlds, all of these worlds. Why can't a world just say, okay, there is this guy, I just want a police person or a military person to pick up a gun and go shoot him dead. Right? That would be Mars. This is one of the beauties of astrology, that it says that you cannot just bring in Mars as and when you want. So as I am in Chandranadi, I try to go out in the world and explore it. And this Pukhraj keeps guiding me into this world. Pukhraj is also, so one of the elements that say, some people say Hanuman is associated with Mars, but a part of me says he's associated with Jupiter as well. He's like a guru. He will protect you. So I try to navigate the world this way. So they cannot just bring Mars to me. I have to enter Mars. I have to enter a boxing ring. I have to enter an MMA cage. And even then, if I know people, they cannot just violate the rules as and when they want. Right? I mean, it would take a lot to be able to do that. But anyways, that is there. So Venus can also be in Surya and Chandra. So for Venus, you can see since I am in salsa. So the person who invents these dance moves, the person who brings out the choreographies season after season. I don't think every artist can do that, but that is more the Surya Nadi. People who can follow it religiously, like people who can execute moves on the fly, but they just cannot, they just don't have the musicality. They are more in the Chandra Nadi. With Mercury, I already explained it. Mars is a bit difficult for me to grasp, but what I think is that impromptu fights are more used in execution, and when the fights that are displayed to you in public, I think a lot of them are choreographed, and that choreography or building of that aura around these martial arts events, I think that is the Surya Nadi, and the fighters who follow it are more in the Chandra Nadi. So I think that is mostly what I understand. And these concepts will also apply to your body. Let's say, so I am not against enhanced people. Like, I am against enhanced people using their strength against unenhanced people, yes. But I do not think that traditional medicine did not have an equivalent version for that. So a voice in my head, it says that, the original steroid was ashwagandha and you just don't know how to use it. So if you look at Ayurveda and TCM, they probably segregated some time back. So TCM encourages the use of eggs or a little bit of meat in limited quantities, not a lot, but to develop heat in the body. So TCM has its own theory, Ayurveda has its own theory. So it's like, let's say you build some strength. I naturally got to 80 kilo bench press. My squat is really bad, and it's 90 kilo squat and like 150 kilo deadlift naturally. Okay, deadlift I actually went to 170 kilos, but that was a manic episode of strength. I don't want to get into it. I think I was a bit stupid to deadlift that much. If I learn how to use ashwagandha, I can probably begin to push to 2 plates. So like 100-120 kilo bench, or like 100-120 kilo cleans and front squats. But like, there are things in Ayurveda called dharaniya and adharaniya wakes. So there are like movements in your body. So you can think of them as Rahu Ketu, which will begin to bind your body. Like, they will prevent you from gaining unfathomable strength. So when you look at this Ayurveda or traditional Chinese medicine, you can learn to overcome them. And through that, you can gain more strength. The point is, I think even modern medicine sometimes says that, like, even people who drink a lot of pills, they sometimes have brittle bones. So I think this is the difference between a proper siddhi and a rasayanik siddhi. Like a yogic accomplishment gained through the right means versus a yogic accomplishment gained through chemical means. It's like, if you gain strength the right way, the traditional way, it's not that you might just lift more weights. You might actually begin to move the way like these martial artists in anime move, right? It's like just flowing through. That sort of a strength might come. But it's also that it's going to take periods of time, right? And also, the problem with this is some voice in my head says that you are born on Earth. You are meant to stay on Earth. You are not meant to stay on Mars. It's like that emptiness is going to begin to come. Like, why do you need that sort of a strength, right? So, if it's meant for some people, let them do it. But yeah, I think this is something that I have begun to understand about astrology. And it's like there are concepts I'm using it, so it's like, yeah, because of all this I went through, I have mania, and like currently, because of the friction at work, like it exacerbated. But it's like I was on 20 milligrams of flurazidone, so I had to increase it to 40. But like a voice in my head said that maybe try to increase the protein for a few days, like instead of 2 eggs, have 3 eggs, have 500 ml of extra milk, try to get it to 80. And 80 was something doctor suggested if it doesn't come. But do it for some period of time so that it waters down. Again, it's like this is an Ayurveda called hot and cold potencies or dry and wet potencies. So all those things. So it's just to try and get myself to stabilize, because what I have understood is initially it's all fun and game, but if you are not meant to be in the Surya Nadi, you have to learn to enjoy life. And it is also something my UFC coach in Boston said, that you are being too serious about martial arts. You have to learn to enjoy the process, otherwise, like, you will burn yourself out. So my mania is not just the mistake of the external world. I think it's also somewhat of my own nature, and it's also something I did to myself. So, yeah, I think that's what I wanted to explain. Yeah. Thanks. Bye.